This is the story of the STP-Paxton Turbocar, also called Silent Sam. A racing machine so far ahead of its time, it seemed born from science fiction. Under the vision of Andy Granatelli, with brilliant design from Ken Wallace, it was crafted in secrecy and launched like a moonshot right into the heart of tradition at Indy. In the cockpit, the fearless Parnelli Jones, set to take the greatest gamble in racing. Across 500 miles, the turbocar would silence the doubters, almost. It was smooth, fast, dazzling. On that fateful afternoon, it led lap after lap, making every piston-powered rival look outdated. Then, with victory almost assured, a $6 bearing changed everything. What happened next became instant myth, a story of ambition, heartbreak, and the hunger to change racing forever. At the center of this vision was Andy Granatelli, Mr. 500 himself. Granatelli wanted not just to win, but to shake the foundations of motorsport. He found a kindred spirit in engineer Ken Wallace, who'd been rejected by Dan Gurney and Carroll Shelby for his radical gas turbine race car idea. Together, supported by Andy's brother Joe, they set to work at STP's Paxton division in Santa Monica, California, a place more reminiscent of a secret lab than a car shop. Wallace designed a central aluminum backbone chassis, offsetting the cockpit to the right and mounting the turbine engine to the left, a Pratt Whitney ST6B62 gas turbine, derived from aviation, ready to unleash power that traditional piston engines could only dream of. Granatelli added the crucial ingredient, Ferguson four-wheel drive, aiming to harness every ounce of turbine torque. The car's suspension was inboard mounted with double wishbones and disc brakes all around, topped with an aerodynamic air brake reminiscent of classic Mercedes-Benz Grand Prix racers. The turbocar's frame, at first warped during heat treating in 1966, forced the team to start the build from scratch a second time. But that delay only fueled their determination. Inside, the car broke every convention. Driver and engine sat side by side, a setup borrowed from Smokey Yunick's offset gondola experiments. The torque converter eliminated the need for a clutch or gear shift. With the engine idling at 54% throttle, Parnelli Jones could roll from the pits just by easing off the brake pedal. This turbine masterpiece cost 4 times a normal Indy car, but promised a longer lifespan, almost supernatural reliability, and, on paper, over 550 horsepower. Early test sessions at Phoenix revealed the car's astonishing potential. Parnelli Jones, already a legend, agreed to drive, lured by Granatelli's bold vision and a briefcase packed with $100,000 cash. Rumors swept the Indy paddock. Something extraordinary was coming. As the month of May approached, anticipation grew. Granatelli's team had risked everything for the chance to rewrite history. No clutch, no shifting, a howl instead of a roar. The STP-Paxton Turbocar stood ready to challenge tradition and chase jet-powered dreams. The STP-Paxton Turbocar was a mechanical revolution, a car from another world, both in looks and in engineering. At the heart of the machine sat the Pratt Whitney ST6B62 gas turbine, producing a staggering 550 horsepower at 6,200 RPM, borrowed not from a car but from a helicopter. Instead of the roar and clatter of pistons, it delivered a smooth, eerie whoosh, earning the nickname Silent Sam at Indy. The car's chassis was a backbone of aluminum, driver on the right, the turbine on the left, a radical side-by-side layout that had never been seen before at the Speedway. The four-wheel drive, borrowed from Ferguson, helped transmit the massive torque to all corners, crucial for handling the silky surge of turbine power and the 3-second throttle lag. There was no gearbox, no clutch, just a torque converter fed by pure jet thrust. To move, all Parnelli Jones had to do was release the brake pedal. The car idled at over 50% power. Suspension was all inboard, with double wishbones, airfoil cross-section A-arms, and disc brakes at every wheel for reliable stopping from 200 miles per hour. Behind the cockpit, an air brake reminiscent of old Mercedes-Benz Grand Prix racers added downforce and drama, while inside, every switch and dial spoke the language of the space age. The backbone frame held tightly the machinery, the driver, and a centrally mounted fuel tank to keep the balance stable, helping Jones tame the unique dynamics of the turbine engine, which responded differently than anything he'd ever driven. The turbocar's technological ambition carried risks. The throttle lag meant a delay between pushing the pedal and feeling the acceleration, requiring high precision on track. The car weighed nearly 1,750 pounds, well above the Indy minimum, with every component hand-built in secrecy, each detail pushing the limits of racing science. Even before it turned a wheel at Indy, rumors swirled. The engine's air intake was restricted to 23.999 square inches per rules, but insiders whispered the car's real potential was being held back. Parnelli Jones trained for the challenge. His first laps, paid with a legendary $100,000 driver's fee, left him skeptical at first. But as he mastered the jet car's odd, delayed power delivery, his confidence grew. Wind tunnel tests and computational models shaped the flowing bodywork and aerodynamic details, while the car's toolkit was as advanced as anything in the pits. The turbocar was ready not just to compete, but to challenge everything Indy knew about what a race car could be. In 1967, racing wasn't just about speed, it was about daring to reimagine the future. The 1967 Indianapolis 500 was a spectacle, but none captivated the crowd quite like the STP-Paxton Turbocar, driven by the formidable Parnelli Jones. In qualifying, Jones secured a respectable 6th position on the grid with a speed of 166.075 miles per hour, though many suspected he was holding back the car's true potential, saving its power for the big race. As the green flag dropped, the turbocar surged to the front, taking the lead on lap 1. Unlike anything seen before, its near-silent jet engine glided smoothly past piston competitors, startling traditionalists and fascinating fans. Lap after lap, Jones extended his dominance, leading a staggering 171 circuits of the famed oval. But the day wasn't without drama. After just 18 laps, rain forced a suspension of the race. When it resumed the next day, Parnelli picked up exactly where he left off, cruising, commanding, and confident. With 20 laps remaining, he was comfortably a lap ahead of second-place Foyt. Then, heartbreak struck. On lap 196 of 200, a tiny $6 transmission bearing failed, crippling the turbine's powertrain and forcing Jones to coast into the pits. The crowd was stunned into silence. The visionary turbocar, poised for a historic victory, was sidelined mere moments from glory. Foyt seized the opportunity, weaving through debris from a late crash and taking the checkered flag for his third Indy 500 win. Yet the headlines and hearts belonged to the turbocar, the whooshmobile that should have won. Though the STP-Paxton Turbocar never took the trophy, its performance revolutionized racing forever. It proved that the future belonged to innovation, and that sometimes the thrill lies not in winning, but in daring to rewrite the rules. The STP-Paxton Turbocar was born from a blend of visionary engineering and bold innovation. Ken Wallace, its designer, had conceived the radical turbine-powered concept that many in the racing world initially rejected. But Andy Granatelli, then CEO of STP, saw potential where others saw risk. Together with Joe Granatelli and Wallace's team, the car was built with secrecy and care at the Paxton division in Santa Monica in 1967. The turbocar's design was revolutionary. Its backbone chassis cradled the Pratt and Whitney Canada ST-6B-62 gas turbine, an engine originally designed for helicopters, delivering smooth, high-revving power unlike conventional piston engines. The driver sat to the right, the engine to the left, making for a unique side-by-side seating that challenged all prior race car norms. The car featured a sophisticated Ferguson four-wheel drive system, an aerodynamic air brake behind the cockpit, and inboard suspension designed for the high speeds of Indianapolis. Granatelli insisted on building every component in-house, a secretive approach aimed at shielding their space-age technology from competitors. They left nothing to chance. Each part was crafted to exact standards to withstand immense power and speed. The driver's role evolved from shifting gears to managing throttle and braking, adapting to a throttle lag of several seconds characteristic of turbine engines. Qualifying saw Parnelli Jones return to the cockpit, taking the turbocar to 6th place with an average speed of 166.075 miles per hour. Impressive for a debut. On race day, the car leapt forward from the start, quickly taking the lead by the second corner. Its silent, steady pace unsettled competitors and thrilled spectators. Jones nearly pulled off a historic victory, leading 171 laps with the finish in sight. Yet, fate struck cruelly in the final laps. A $6 transmission bearing failed, forcing Jones to coast to the pits with just 8 miles remaining. While Foyt claimed victory, the turbocar left an indelible mark on racing history, challenging conventions and sparking fierce debate. In the aftermath, USAC restricted turbine intake sizes, effectively stifling turbine entries. Attempts to revive the technology in '68 and beyond faltered, culminating in a ban on turbines and four-wheel drive systems in 1969. Still, the STP-Paxton Turbocar remains a testament to daring innovation, a legendary what might have been in America's racing lore. The aftermath of the 1967 Indianapolis 500 was a whirlwind of emotion, innovation, and controversy. While the turbocar, driven by Parnelli Jones, dominated much of the race and captured imaginations with its futuristic technology, fate cruelly intervened just moments from victory when a small transmission bearing failed, forcing Jones to coast into the pits and relinquish the lead. Despite the heartbreaking loss, the turbocar's impact was profound. Andy Granatelli and his team had shattered the notion that piston engines were the only future of Indy racing. Their turbine-powered marvel was a glimpse of a new era. The car's design, with four-wheel drive and a jet engine producing 550 horsepower, was revolutionary, yet it challenged the very rules that governed the sport. The USAC responded quickly. In less than a month, they drastically reduced the allowable air intake for turbines from 23.999 to 15.999 square inches. This rule change, implemented immediately and without the customary 2-year notice for rule changes, essentially curtailed the advantage of turbine cars, limiting their power and speed in subsequent races. Undeterred, Granatelli teamed up with Lotus in 1968 to develop the Lotus 56, a wedge-shaped turbine car with improved aerodynamics that featured the engine positioned behind the driver. Despite early promise and leading performances by drivers like Joe Leonard and Graham Hill, mechanical failures again robbed turbine entries of victory. The deaths and retirements of drivers due to accidents and mechanical issues added a shadow to turbine innovation. By 1969, new USAC regulations further restricted turbine technology and banned four-wheel drive cars, marking the end of the turbine era in Indy racing. While turbine cars never won the four-wheeled crown, their influence on racing technology and daring innovation lives on as a testament to the audacity of visionaries like Granatelli and Wallace. The STP-Paxton Turbocar's story is not just one of loss, but of pushing boundaries in the relentless pursuit of speed. It remains a symbol of racing innovation and the fearless spirit that drives motorsport forward. The STP-Paxton Turbocar was a marvel of innovation and engineering, a car like no other to race at Indianapolis. Its turbine engine was derived from aviation technology, a Pratt Whitney Canada ST6B62 gas turbine typically used in helicopters. This engine pumped out 550 horsepower while idling quietly at over half throttle, producing an eerie, smooth whoosh rather than the traditional roar of a piston engine. Ken Wallace designed this radical car around a central aluminum backbone chassis. The driver sat offset to the right, with the turbine engine seated alongside on the left, creating a unique side-by-side cockpit layout. Power was sent to all four wheels via Ferguson's four-wheel drive system, offering superior traction and handling that would prove a game-changer on the Indianapolis Oval. Unlike traditional race cars, the turbocar had no clutch or gears. just a torque converter controlling power delivery. This daring design had its quirks. Parnelli Jones, the legendary driver chosen to pilot the car, described the throttle delay of up to 3 seconds as a puzzle requiring precise judgment. The car would idle at half power, so Jones needed to keep the brake on to prevent unintended acceleration. Despite these challenges, Jones began to master the turbine's unique driving rhythm through testing. The car's lightweight aluminum chassis, inboard coil springs, and sophisticated suspension system helped counterbalance the additional weight of the turbine engine, which made the car tip the scales at roughly 1,750 pounds, heavier than many competitors but offset by the turbine's raw power and smooth delivery. Aerodynamics also played a crucial role. The turbocar featured an air brake behind the cockpit, a folded panel designed to increase drag and aid deceleration when needed, a nod to classic Grand Prix designs. The sleek, day-glow orange body was crafted to reduce drag, optimize airflow to the turbine's intake, and maximize stability at speeds exceeding 200 miles per hour. Though advanced, the car had to comply with USAC regulations limiting turbine engine air intake to 23.999 square inches, aiming to restrict its power output. Still, the STP-Paxton Turbocar produced a staggering 550 horsepower, enough to suppress fears that it was merely a gimmick. With this unprecedented technology, the turbocar was ready to challenge the status quo. Tests in Phoenix showed its blazing speed and handling, while inside the cockpit, Parnelli Jones prepared to tackle a new kind of Indy 500, a race where jet propulsion would rewrite the history of the speedway. The 1967 STP-Paxton Turbocar's near victory at Indianapolis sent shockwaves through the racing world. Powered by a jet turbine engine and equipped with four-wheel drive, it was unlike any other car on the grid, a glimpse into a radical new future of motorsport. Parnelli Jones, the fearless driver behind the wheel, was initially skeptical of the machine's unique handling and throttle delay, but soon harnessed its power to dominate most of the race. The car slipped past rivals with an eerie silence that belied its raw power. In scorching Indianapolis heat, Jones led for 171 of the 200 laps, carving out a commanding lead unmatched by piston-powered competitors. Alongside Andy Granatelli, his visionary owner, Jones had created a winning combination, but fate intervened. With the finish line in sight and just 4 laps remaining, a small and inexpensive transmission bearing catastrophically failed. The Silent Sam, as the turbocar was known, coasted quietly to a halt mere yards from the pit lane. The crowd and crew were stunned into silence. A.J. Foyt seized the lead and went on to win, while Jones was left to reflect on the cruel twist of fate that denied him a historic victory. The impact of the turbocar transcended the disappointment. It revealed vulnerabilities in the regulatory framework, forcing USAC to limit turbine intake sizes and ban four-wheel drive shortly after. Despite subsequent attempts to improve the technology, including the iconic 1968 Lotus 56 turbine car, turbine engines were gradually phased out from Indy racing. Yet, the legacy of the STP-Paxton Turbocar endures. It challenged traditions, sparked debate, and inspired engineers to think beyond pistons and cylinders. It remains a bold symbol of innovation, daring, and the relentless pursuit of speed. For fans and historians, it's a story of almosts and dreams, proof that sometimes racing legends are born not just from victory, but from the courage to push boundaries. Following the dramatic debut of the STP-Paxton Turbocar in 1967, the 1968 Indianapolis 500 saw another bold step into turbine racing innovation, the Lotus 56. Designed by Maurice Philippe and backed by Team Lotus and STP sponsorship, the Lotus 56 took the turbine concept further with a new aerodynamic wedge shape and enhanced four-wheel drive. This car featured a detuned Pratt and Whitney ST6N74 gas turbine engine producing roughly 500 horsepower, slightly less than the previous year, but combined with advanced suspension and a more compact chassis. The single-speed direct-drive transmission, four-wheel independent suspension, and inboard ventilated disc brakes made it radically different from anything else on the grid. The 1968 season was marked by tragedy for Team Lotus. Jim Clark had tested the car but was killed in a Formula 2 race, and Mike Spence, another driver assigned to Lotus, died testing the car at Indianapolis. Replacement drivers Joe Leonard, Graham Hill, and Art Pollard stepped in, all carrying huge expectations. Qualifying was impressive. Joe Leonard clinched pole with an average speed exceeding 171 miles per hour, with Graham Hill and Art Pollard also setting competitive times. This marked the first time turbine cars secured the top starting positions at Indy, raising anticipation levels. The race itself showed promise. Leonard led for 31 laps, and Hill was competitive before a critical mechanical failure, a fuel pump drive shaft overheating, ended their bids. Pollard crashed after losing a wheel, and none of the Lotus turbines finished the race, denied victory by factors beyond raw speed. Despite the setbacks, the Lotus 56's technological impact reverberated. Its wedge shape influenced racing car aerodynamics in subsequent decades, including Formula 1 designs. The challenges and breakthroughs of turbine racing catalyzed innovation on multiple fronts. Ultimately, USAC imposed stricter rules, making turbine cars effectively obsolete after 1968, marking an end to the brief but brilliant turbine era in IndyCar racing. The Lotus 56 remains a symbol of bold engineering and the relentless quest for speed, a shining chapter in racing history born out of the daring vision that succeeded the original turbocar. The story of the STP-Paxton Turbocar didn't end with the heartbreak of 1967. Instead, it sparked a brief but intense period of innovation and controversy in IndyCar racing history. Following the turbocar's near win, several turbine-powered cars burst onto the scene for the 1968 Indianapolis 500. Among these was the Lotus 56, designed by Maurice Philippe and backed by Team Lotus and STP. The car featured a wedge-shaped aerodynamic body that was unlike anything before it. Its turbine engine was tuned for reliability and power, though slightly less potent than the 1967 turbocar, delivering 500 horsepower. Like the Paxton, the Lotus employed Ferguson four-wheel drive to channel that force directly to the track. Despite the promise, tragedy marred the season before and during the race. Jim Clark, who tested the car extensively, lost his life in a Formula 2 crash, and Mike Spence died in practice at Indy in a Lotus 56. The drivers who replaced them, Joe Leonard, Graham Hill, and Art Pollard, faced the monumental challenge of racing cutting-edge machines against a field still dominated by piston engines. Joe Leonard qualified on pole and led the race at multiple stages, demonstrating the turbine car's remarkable speed and cornering ability. However, mechanical failures again proved costly. Leonard's fuel pump shaft overheated near the end, forcing him out. Pollard crashed out, and Hill retired with mechanical issues. Ultimately, none of the turbine cars finished the race, their incredible potential left unfulfilled. The turbocar era came to a rapid close. Following 1968, USAC imposed tighter regulations restricting turbine air intakes and outlawing four-wheel drive to preserve competition equality. This effectively ended turbine power in IndyCar racing. Yet, the STP-Paxton Turbocar and its successors remain enduring symbols of innovation and daring, a bold challenge to the boundaries of speed and engineering that left an indelible mark on motorsport history. The 1967 STP-Paxton Turbocar had a lasting legacy that continues to captivate motorsport enthusiasts decades later. Though it came heartbreakingly close to winning the iconic Indianapolis 500, its impact went far beyond the final laps. The car challenged the established norms of racing, the piston engine monopoly, rear-wheel drive, and conventional gearboxes. With its gas turbine engine and four-wheel drive system, it embodied the peak of innovation and ambition. Its performance on the track shocked competitors and inspired teams worldwide to re-examine what technology could achieve. In response, USAC's governing body moved swiftly to restrict turbine engines. the allowable air intake was greatly reduced, and four-wheel drive systems were banned, effectively ending turbine participation in IndyCar racing. Yet, the daring spirit of the turbocar endured, influencing future racing designs and encouraging engineering creativity beyond the racetrack. While the STP-Paxton Turbocar itself raced only briefly, its story became legend, a symbol of audacious thinking and technological progress. It paved the way for turbine-powered designs such as the Lotus 56 and other experimental technologies that have shaped motorsport through the decades. Today, the turbocar resides in museums and private collections, often hailed as one of the most extraordinary race cars ever built. Its story reminds us that innovation involves risk, failure, and sometimes near misses. But those moments fuel the relentless pursuit of speed and engineering excellence. In truth, the turbocar was not merely an almost winner, but a visionary icon that forever changed the landscape of racing history. As we wrap up our journey through the remarkable story of the STP-Paxton Turbocar, it's clear this car is far more than a footnote in racing history. It represents the audacity to dream beyond the conventional, to push the very limits of technology and imagination. Though it never claimed the victory it chased so fiercely in 1967, the turbocar's spirit has endured. It challenged the status quo, provoked rule changes, and inspired generations of engineers and racers to think differently. For a brief moment, it thrilled the motorsport world with the possibility that jet propulsion could redefine speed. Its legacy lives on in museums, stories, and in the reverent eyes of those who understand that true innovation often comes wrapped in risk and near misses. The STP-Paxton Turbocar reminds us all that sometimes the greatest triumph is not crossing the finish line first, it's daring to change the race itself.